Hi everybody, it's Cray and I teach watercolor, and today we are doing our blue heron project.
Ooh.
We have Michael here working the cameras.
Hello.
So glad you're here. And we are going to be doing this project in 5 steps. So our very first step is we are going to paint the neck and the beak of our blue heron. Our second step is we are going to do a loose body wash using blue. Our third step is we are going to add some splatters and movement and then paint the head. Our fourth step is we are going to paint our eye and then start putting in some shadows and details on our neck. And our very last step is we are going to put some feather lines and kind of redefine this area if we need to. Okay?
Sounds great.
I love this project because it's actually fairly quick and it's just kind of fun. I love painting birds so much. It's one of my favorite things to paint. They're just like vibrant, and the colors that you can get and the feathers and all this stuff. So I hope that you guys have fun with it. We're using 3 paintbrushes for this project, around 2, around 6, and around 12. But please use whatever paintbrushes that you have. Whatever you have will work just fine. The paints that we're using for this box in our Along the Coast box is actually a custom set that Art Philosophy put together for us here. So it's going to come in a metal tin like so, and they're little cake watercolors. And the colors are, and I'm just going to point to them, Sassfrass, Jellyfish, Sourwood, Shadow, Crabapple, and White Mocha.
Those are so good.
I know, as soon as I read Sassafras, I'm like, whoever named these colors, just excellent job.
Jellyfish.
Jellyfish. I have a paper towel handy, which is always a good idea to have, and I want to call attention to the fact that I did already move the outline to my paper, and you can use graphite paper, you can use a window, you can use a light box, you can actually just take a pencil and color the back and then transfer it. But I want to point out this outline can actually be used in 2 different orientations. It's printed vertical. So if you want to have a vertical painting of this project.
Portrait, if you will.
Portrait, thank you. Portrait orientation, then this will work just great. I did horizontal, so I moved it on its side. Both of these will work beautiful. You just want to make sure that the corner is coming off the page, whatever orientation, because as you can see, the body is cut off, so it wouldn't make sense for it to be right in the middle. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's up to you. You guys can decide what orientation you would like for your blue heron. Okay, I'm using I'm using Holbein soft tape to tape my paper down. It is my favorite tape. If you're experiencing tearing with this tape and this paper, you might want to make sure that you're painting on the front side of the paper. The front side is more textured, and if you feel both, I guess both are textured, but the front side, the indents will go in and it will have a little bit more texture. Okay?
Got you.
So try that, and I think we're ready to give it a go.
To do the thing?
To do the thing. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do our oath. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Love starting that way. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. I also have a heated craft tool just in case I need it. Let's go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create kind of like a bluish gray color. So I'm going to take my round 12, I'm going to get it wet, hit it off the side of the cup because we do not want it to drip. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of my shadow color here and a little bit of my jellyfish color here. And I'm just going to mix those together.
I love these little cake pans.
Aren't they fun?
They're nice for travel.
They really are. And I just realized that I forgot to say something, which is cake watercolors are already dried watercolors. And so to reconstitute them, you can just take a wet brush and touch it in there. But sometimes if you're working with a really delicate brush, it can damage the bristles if you're too hard. So I'll take a spray bottle or a water dropper and just do a little squirt on each one.
I did not know you could hurt brushes.
You can hurt brushes. You can hurt watercolor brushes because they're very delicate.
Oh.
Acrylic brushes and oil brushes are very sturdy and have thicker bristles, so they can hold up to a lot of pushing and
Abuse.
A lot of work. But with watercolor brushes, especially, think of like a liner too. It's like 4 bristles. And they're so... it's a baby. So you got to be soft with them. That's also why you never want to leave your brushes in the water. Even when you're painting, don't do this. Always, like, if you're not going to use it, just rest it on your paper towel, because over time, your bristles will bend. Okay.
My reoccurring character, art friend, who comes and judges you harshly on all of your art, will come by if you have a brush in water and go, oh.
I will say that one time, like, people were painting with me, and I just, like, saw them resting their brushes in the water, and I just, like, side-eyed it, and they're like, oh, sorry. And I'm like, I don't mean to get angry. It's only because I care.
Wait, is art friend based off of you? Are you art friend?
It's my alter ego.
You just go, you chose that blue.
I'm grabbing a scratch piece of paper. Hold up. Okay. Now, the only thing when it comes to this art tin is, as you can see, the tin color itself has a bluish tint compared to our paper, which might throw off the color that we're mixing. So sometimes I just like to test it on a scratch piece of paper. I need more blue in there.
Listen, if you felt like being crafty, a quick trip to Walmart, a can of white enamel paint, and about 20 minutes of time, we could fix that blue color.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it came white, but I've used this a lot. And so I think the paint has changed. Okay, let's actually paint. I'm going to grab my round 12. Using just water, I am going to just wet the neck. This lovely, graceful swan neck. Should we paint a swan together?
Oh my gosh, that'd be fun.
I just feel like swans are kind of trending right now.
They're very mean.
Are they?
Oh my gosh, I've been attacked by a swan. They are not kind. They're like geese.
And then I'm going to take this blue and shadow mixture together and then just drop it in while it's wet. I would have never guessed that they were mean. They are like the epitome of grace in my...
Listen, I could have been doing something wrong. I don't speak swan. They might have been like, hey, you're getting too close to my eggs or something.
And they're like talking to you. They're like, hey, quit it.
I was just like, ooh, so pretty. They were not kind.
You okay?
Yes. Getting all riled up about swan.
Okay, and then while it's still wet, I'm going to look at the areas on my outline where there's a little bit of hash marks. You can use your reference photo here. Where there's just a little bit of a darker value, I'm going to drop in just another hit of color.
Have you ever seen a blue heron in real life up close, like at a zoo or something?
I don't think so.
1, they're beautiful. They're majestic. And 2, I'm never more aware that like birds are dinosaurs than when I'm looking at things like a heron.
Yeah.
They just look like prehistoric, you know?
Yeah, they do. And just like one more hit of color. You can see that as this dries, the color is going to lighten. That's true for all watercolor. When you put it down, when it's wet, it's going to be a darker value. And then as it dries, that value is just going to lighten naturally. Okay, so that's good. We're going to move on to our beak. So I'm going to mix an orange. So I'm going to just start calling them their standard colors, like red and yellow.
Saffron and...
Sassafrass.
Sassafrass.
I'm going to take the yellow and the red and mix it together to get an orange. And then using my round 2, I'm just going to start painting the beak.
It looks like your arm is in paint right now.
It's lifted above.
I've just been married to you a long time, and your arm usually gets in paint.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to have paint all over my forearms and hand at the end of this session. But that's the part, that's the fun of it, you know? This is also why acrylic just is not my thing, because watercolor you can get out of your clothes. Acrylic, you cannot. And the amount of stained acrylic clothes that I had... I ruined everything.
Sarah is actually such a good artist that the art she paints is not the art. Her body becomes the art and her clothing.
Okay. That's it. just an orange beak. Nothing too crazy here. And you can decide how dark you want your orange to be, if you want to do like pops of yellow on top while it's wet, or little hints of like red. You absolutely can. I always love variation in color and values, so whenever you want to feel a little bit edgy and just go for it, go for it. Okay, now we're going to move on to step 2. We are going to do the body wash. Now, if you want, you could add salt in this to get different textures. That's up to you. I'm going to leave that up to you. Okay. I'm going to take my round 12, and first I'm going to make sure I have a blue that I'm happy with. So I'm going to take some of this blue here. Let's just swatch it and see how that feels pretty good. Maybe add a tiny bit of the shadow color to get like a darker desaturated blue. Ooh, that's pretty. I like that. And then if you want, like, let's just see. Sometimes I like to just see how colors mix together. Like, what if I were to do a little bit of this like blush color in there? That's gonna gray it. So I have some blues that I feel good about. Maybe I'll just like, what happens if we actually take some of this blue and mix a tiny bit of red? Ooh. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna do that. And what you can do too, if you want more mixing room than this side right here, is you can actually move the color mixing onto your butcher tray too, if you have one. Okay? Okay, so I'm gonna take my round 12, I'm gonna grab this blue, and I'm just gonna like loosely start putting in the body. Okay. And you can use water to spread it out. So I'm gonna do kind of like a smooth line along the top, use water to spread it, and then using like my rough brush technique, I can just do these kind of like angled swoops here to give the feeling of feathers. Boop, 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 boop. And I feel like it needs a little bit of the dark blue in there. So while it's wet, you could just drop it in. Now there is the edge of this wing here that's kind of like just black. So I'm gonna wet that area, grab the shadow, and just put black in. And that color is just gonna like move on its own and do its own thing, and we're gonna let it. Remember, we're trying to be like really loose here. Loose and gestural. And this is where you would want to put in salt if you're interested in putting in salt. While it's wet, you would just do a couple little, let's just do some. Boop, boop.
Have you seen those like bug salt guns?
Oh, yes.
I've thought about getting you one for painting. Like you could kind of just like shoot it and it would like inject the salt into the paper. I don't know.
I love pew pew. Okay, and then I want to like start touching my body to the neck. So then it doesn't feel
disconnected.
Yes, disconnected, exactly. And we're going to get bleeds, we're going to get blooms. That is okay. Remember, we're just laying it down. We'll go back and we'll tighten things up after. Okay, and now what we are going to do is the splatters. Now, I wanted my splatters to be very, very big. I wanted it to feel like this bird is standing in the water and a big wave kind of is coming up and splattering around it kind of thing. So I'm going to still use my round 12. I am going to pick up some of this blue paint, and I do want my brush to be dripping this time. This is like some of the few instances where you want your brush to be like really dripping with water. And I'm just going to do kind of a stabbing motion.
I notice you're not saying hiya. I think that makes the paint splatter better. Hiya. There you go. Look at those splatters now.
Now, when you like move your arm and splatter in a direction, it's going to create a line with your splatters. If you want it to just kind of be not in a directive line, then you'll just try and do it just straight up and down. Ooh, that kind of. And the other thing that we can do is we can cheat a little bit. Just like use your brush to make whatever size splatters you want. If you don't like how some created a direction line, blend them out.
Art friend disapproves of that technique.
It doesn't count.
That doesn't count as splatters.
And then what I like to do is I like to do small ones along with large ones for variation. So I'm going to cover the head.
Don't watch, bird.
Don't worry about this, birdie. And I'm going to grab some of the blue that I still have mixed on my palette. Make sure you have nothing expensive close by. And just a couple darker, smaller splatters. And if you want to try and put salt in these two, let's just see. Let's just see what happens.
If you happen to be wearing your great-grandmother's wedding dress while you're doing this, please don't get splatters on it.
Great-grandma's wedding dress?
Don't you just wear those around?
I do, actually, yeah. Okay. So that feels good. We're going to leave that for a second. We're going to move on, and we're still on step 3. This is where we're going to start putting in color in along the head. So I'm going to use my round 2, and the first thing I'm going to do is put in this really dark area that's right behind the eye. And it's not pure black. There is a little bit of blue to it. So I'm going to take this black color, I'm going to take this blue color, and I'm going to mix it together till I get a really, really dark blue. Okay?
Can we just refer to it as its eyebrow? Just big, strong eyebrow.
Yes, we can. And just carefully paint the back of the head. Now the scary part are doing these little feathers that kind of come off it because they're so thin. Okay, so just like take a breath, vertical hold, light pressure. There we go. And if it goes slightly different from your outline, that's okay. I've noticed that when I try and follow an outline, I go slower, which then my line becomes like thicker and thinner in some areas and sometimes shaky. So it's better to go slightly outside of the outline and just go for it than to try and match the line exactly. And now I'm going to take this blue color that I already have mixed on my palette, and I'm going to paint the top of the head. Like so. That feels pretty good. And then kind of like right underneath this dark blue area into the gray, the blue kind of like lightens up as it transitions to the white or the gray of the neck. So I'm just going to put in a little hint of blue right underneath there to make it pop. Okay? There is also blue right above the orange of the beak, so you're going to want to make sure that your beak is dry.
I feel like blue animals are rare.
Yes, they are.
I'm trying to think what else is blue even. Just birds.
Yeah. I think that's why I love painting birds so much, is because you can get like the blue animal part. Okay, so then I want to paint the bottom. So how do I say this? The face is white, but even with white, you get shadow. So I'm going to take this like peachy color. And let's just see what this looks like right underneath here. Yep, this peachy color is actually a really lovely like desaturated color, so it works well for shadows, it works well for sand. And underneath, kind of underneath the face, I'm going to put that color in using my 6, rinse my brush, hit it on my paper towel, and then just kind of blend out. So we get some value on the bottom of the
jowl.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know.
Jowl sounded great to me. And I'm just looking at my beak. I feel like I need to actually make this line a little bit straighter. So I'm just going to go in and adjust that line. So at any time you can stop and say, you know what, that beak feels a bit off. feels better. Okay. And when it comes to the eye of the heron, I'm gonna do the yellow part first, and then after that has dried, we'll go back in with black and do the iris and the area and the black part around the eye. So I'm gonna take this yellow, add water to it, and just like the middle size circle. And you don't have to work around the iris in the middle because we're just gonna cover that with black anyway. Okay. Now we're gonna let that dry. We're gonna move on to step 4, and we're gonna work on the neck. So we had our wet on wet neck here. You can see where the colors kind of diffused out, and this is where we get to start putting in some like lovely textures and shadows. So right underneath the neck head here, I'm gonna do just a swoop of blue-gray color like that. And already, doesn't that feel more dimensional? Just a little shadow, okay? Absolutely. And we're gonna do that again here at this curve. And underneath here. And maybe a bit here. Okay, so just a few swoops using this medium value is really going to make our neck pop. Okay, I'm gonna take this shadow color, mix it with a tiny bit of blue. I'm going for a really light gray. And then using my round 2, I'm gonna start putting in these feathers that have gotten wet, that kind of are drooping down. Okay, and then using that same gray color, I'm going to go in and do just a few small thin lines using a very light value, so it's like a barely there color, to show that there is feathers here. So it's just a few feather textures, just like 1, 2, 3 dashes. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, that feels really good. And know that anytime you can go back in and make adjustments. I feel like this area needs to be darker, so I'm just going to do one more layer, even though that wasn't in my steps. Just felt right. Okay. Now, the head of our bird still feels a bit wonky because the eye is not there. But that's okay, we'll get there. And while I'm looking at it, I feel like I could do just one more swoop here. Yeah. Okay.
It's a good looking heron.
Thank you. All right, now I am going to do the eyeball, and then we get to do the finishing touches on the body where we kind of like tighten things up. So I'm going to take my heated craft tool, make sure that the eye, the yellow part, is completely dry. And then I'm going to pick up some of this shadow color, which is black, using my 2. And then, oh so carefully, we are going to paint around the eye. And the iris. And birds' eyes are actually kind of creepy. So if you're looking at this and you're like, this looks really creepy, it's because they are. That I always feel like they're doing this.
Wait, one more time. What are they doing?
I'm actually gonna I think I might make the iris just a little bit bigger. Oh, it's so scary though. Because it's such a small. Okay. And I'm actually going to kind of bring that blue a little bit closer to the eye. Okay, that feels pretty good. And if you want to, you can put in a little bit of a line on the beak right here. So just using like a black or a gray, just if you want to kind of separate the top and the bottom, just like that. Small little hint right there. Okay. Now we get to do the body, and look at what happened with my salt. That's beautiful, actually. I love that.
Me too.
Just that little hint of texture.
Salty textures are my favorite.
Me too. They just add.
I actually really like too wet. You know when you like get your paper too wet and then you let it dry and it has that bloomy?
Yes.
That's my favorite.
Yes. Me too. I love it. It's interesting because when you start watercolor, you think of all of these things that you don't like because you don't intend them. So because you don't intend them, you think that you messed up. But in reality, the beauty of watercolor is that it does so much on its own that we basically like collaborate with it instead of control it. And it's when you can learn to appreciate all of what it's supposed to be doing instead of being mad that it's not doing exactly what you thought it should do. That's when like the world of watercolor just like opens up. So I'm going to take a blue, a little bit of a darker blue, and then right here in the middle, if you can still see your outline, you can start doing some swoops here. So think about, let me get a scratch paper. Think about how feathers kind of like come down and point together. See how they're kind of layered? It has that like look of layered feathers.
Yes.
So that's kind of the marks that we're making here. I'm going to use my 6 to get them a little bit thinner. So I'm just kind of putting in the hint of like, yes, this is the edge of a wing here. Then using that same blue, I'm going to just do one swoop along that top and then blend it out just to get a little bit of value and form on the top of that wing right there.
If you can't picture a bird's wing texture, just go ahead and picture hair in the 80s with the feathered look.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and then because I touched this area with my water when I was blending it out, I lost that really dark edge of my wing, and that's okay because I can just put it in right now. And then using blue, I can go under here. And these are kind of thinner feathers. So if you want to switch to your 2, you can. And I'm just going to actually put some of that color in there. And if ever you put a line that you don't like I don't like that I just put those 2 lines right next to each other parallel, blend it out. Then underneath here, kind of like, if this is the edge of my wing right here, we have the body right underneath here. You see that little V? Mm. I'm going to do that. I'm going to paint that using kind of a dark blue just to kind of separate it. So I'm going to go underneath with this blue, use water, blend up. And then for that little extra like hint of detail, I'm going to take that blue and try and work in between the little thin feathers that I have.
You're a mad woman. Mad, I say.
It just, see how it kind of defines that bottom of the neck?
Totally.
Just like that. And then I'm actually just going to like move the blue to go to the full edge of the paper, because when you remove the tape, I really like it when there's like a nice clean line. So sometimes you just have to smear that color to get like a nice edge. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay. And then the very last thing that we are going to do is taking this blue and just doing thinner feather textures on the top. Now that blue that I just laid down is probably too dark of a value, so I'm just going to lift it up, add a bit more water into my blue mixture. So notice that I'm kind of following the curve of the body. And sometimes on these feathers, they actually have like a really dark tip. So if you want to go in there and just do kind of a little dark blue tip.
Leave a tip, if you will.
Yeah, leave a little bit of a tip on this wing. And for me, I don't love that. I mean, I like that my black is defined on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, there's no like movement there. So I'm just gonna mess it up. There we go. Ooh, that feels better. Sometimes a painting bothers me until I just like mess it up. And I'm like, ah, yes, chaos. And the lovely thing about this painting is, I mean, I've been talking a lot, but I mean, this takes you less than a half hour. And so if you can play and experiment with lines and textures and salt, and if it doesn't work out, you can just throw it away and start over. You know, like this is a fairly quick painting. And so I want you guys, whenever we do like a little bit quicker paintings, explore, experiment, try something new and different. Because the only thing you lost is 20 to 30 minutes out of the day, and you have gained so much knowledge that you'll be able to take to your next painting. Just doing one more. And then I'm going to check my feathers on my neck. Maybe just a little more shadow right underneath here, right underneath the base. Boo. I think we're there.
Helen the Heron.
Helen. I thought you were saying the word hell. I'm like, what?
No, Helen.
Helen the Heron. That's perfect. Love it. And she's done.
Lovely.
Helen is done. So, again, I just explained that I really hope you take the time to play and experiment with this. This is a straightforward, fun painting, and it just shows you that things don't have to be hard and heavy and complicated. You can splatter and you can do loose washes and you can drop in salt and color. And then just that very last step, redefining, adding a couple of shadows, and all of a sudden your animal pops and it looks awesome. So thank you so much for painting with me. I hope you have fun with this. If you're... my brain tooted. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. If you're on the watercolor, if you're on Facebook, you can join the watercolor group. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. And if you're on Instagram, tag us. We want to see your work. Tag us at Let's Go Make Art. That's all, you guys. See you next time. Bye.